Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Friday Morning Live. Today's date is April 24th, 2020, and I'm in Tallahassee. Hope you all are safe and sound where you are, whether you're working remotely. And I know some agents are working kind of half and half. Some are going to the office a day or two a week, and most are working remotely. So be safe and sound out there. We had a heck of a little thunder boomer come through Northeast Florida last night, but I think we're all safe and sound. And the only one I know of is Ryan Liebau on our staff. Lost power, but also had some issue with on his street. So, but he's safe and sound this morning. So hope you are as well. Today's topic is work comp issues and working remotely. So we'll get into that in just a second. There I am, Dave Newell. Again, welcome aboard. And as we do every Friday, let's take a stretch break. We're monitoring this, so we can see if you're actually getting up right now and stretching. So just kidding. But it's that time of day. You've probably been at your desk for several hours. Most of us are getting up early and getting, because you don't have to go far, right, Frank? You just walk from one room to the next.
It's a short commute.
Exactly.
It is a short commute, Dave.
So, but let's do a few questions. Certainly respond to those in your question pane. What have you learned about yourself working remotely, good or bad? What are the habits? What are the things that you've kind of developed into yourself since you've been working remotely? So just throw that into the question pane, if you don't mind. Have you discussed a timeline to return to work? We just had some emails here internally at FAIA about that topic. We're going to have some meetings about that starting on Monday to see how we develop a workflow, a plan to redeploy resources back at FAIA. And just curious if you guys have started to have those conversations as we get closer to the end of the governor's order, which ends the end of the month, which is just next week. So just curious. Talk to many agents, and right now, many are writing new business. Many have a lot of opportunity. Just curious if you have seen the same thing in the areas where you're located. So just throw that out there. Are you having virtual meetings with your marketing reps? Ask several agents, and it's kind of mixed. Some are and some aren't having any type of other than either text or email, but not really any virtual meetings with their marketing reps. So just curious about that. And the other thing too is, and this came up with a conversation with an agent yesterday, who within your group, since now people are spread out, who in your group is maintaining information when there are changes to underwriting guides from the carriers you represent? How is that information being communicated among the group? So just curious. Been writing some new business and renewing most of our commercial accounts. Well, congratulations. I mean, I know that's certainly good news for those that write a lot of commercial accounts and have that type of business that's flowing through the agency. So just and we'll get to the questions here in a second. Just a reminder, we have a coronavirus industry update page, and it's updated on just about daily by Agatha and our communications department. So take a look at that at least a couple times a week and see what additional information is there available to you as a resource to help you, your agency, and your clients. So the community we always talk about, and Frank's one of our bloggers, so we'll talk to Frank a little bit about that. But certainly the community is used heavily to communicate to our members and post questions and create dialogue among members and staff about certain issues. So just a reminder about that. And then this continues to be on the rise. We have many more people taking our webinars and webcasts, and we thank you for that support and certainly appreciate you taking a look at those classes. Some of you are returning veterans and some are new for first timers. So we appreciate that. And but that schedule is out for the next couple weeks and a month or so. And so we'll continue to go down that path and add content as needed. Just some of the questions we're getting here at FAI. Just a reminder, the CFO issued an order this past week about temporary licensing. We started to get some questions about this a few weeks ago. We had a conversation with the CFO and then Greg Thomas, who is the director over agent and agency services. And they were thinking about it, but they issued an order here recently, and it just covers, as you see, those 3 license types. So you would have to complete all the pre-licensing requirements for those 3 license types, get fingerprinted, do all the things, pay your fee, so on and so forth, and then you would get a temporary license. You would not get a full-fledged license, and you can see it's the 2044. It is not the 220. It's the 214 and the 240. So once that, and the license is good for 6 months. So once that's over, then you would be able to sit for the state exam once hopefully those centers are open and readily available. And we also noticed this week that North Carolina just did the same thing. And I'm sure there's other states that are doing part of this to help agents and agencies that are trying to get people licensed, to try to bring them into the fold to help. And this is a temporary fix. Cancellation, non-renewals, and premium consideration. That's certainly a hot topic just about every day around here. And as many of you know, the Travelers just recently, Liberty Mutual issued some guidance on this. So there's not been an order by the department or the OIR. There's not been some mandate, but a lot of carriers have taken this issue and have dealt with this individually with their agents and their consumers. So, we read a lot in the press about what some are doing as far as giving concessions to premium for the auto policies and so on and so forth. But that's certainly something that is out there. There is no formal order or thing by the department that's acknowledging that every carrier has to do it a certain way. Everybody's kind of do it individually. So just keep an eye on that. And if we learn of anything else on a more widespread basis, we'll bring it to you through the community and the website. So NCCI update. Frank just put something out there on a blog this week, and we'll talk about some other things that NCCI is doing to help agents better understand how this PPP money is being treated, and how just today, Frank, and we'll get into a little bit of this, the NCCI just released a COVID-19 and workers' compensation modeling potential impact to the system. So we've not really read it. We got it early this morning. We'll digest it and certainly get more information out about it. But we strongly recommend you get on the website, the NCCI website, and go take a look at that and see what some of the impact is currently with COVID-19 and the impact of workers' compensation. Frank, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, Dave, there's a lot of anxiety among agents and brokers that we're speaking with and are reaching out on behalf of FAIA with respect to that. What about the Paycheck Protection Act funds and how our premiums can be determined? We can talk about that if you like. And I think that the other big issue that the carriers are most concerned about, and probably agents and brokers as well, are the essential workers, grocery store clerks and construction workers and so on, will COVID-19 claim be compensable under work comp? I don't think anybody's going to question the issue around medical providers and first responders. I think we're going to see that the medical people, if they contract the disease, they're likely going to be it's going to be compensable under work comp. The question is, how far will that extend? Right. And will a construction worker, if they contract it, will it be compensable? And there's going to be a lot of discussion, likely litigation around that. And could speak more about the premium issues as well, because there's so many unknowns about compensability right now. Some state legislatures are stepping in and saying, Anybody that files a work comp claim that says that they contracted COVID-19 at work, it's compensable. Florida's not done that as yet, but that is some concerns of the carriers. The offset to all that, as mentioned a few moments ago, too briefly, is the great news is we have a lot fewer automobile accidents right now, and those are the catastrophic million-dollar claims. So there's some hope, and I haven't dug into the details of what you just mentioned, Dave, with respect to what are the actuaries saying, what are they projecting, but the likelihood is we're going to see this dramatic reduction in automobile accidents, which means severity claims will come way down. Hopefully that will offset any differences.
Right. So again, more to come on that. And then also on the screen, we've gotten a lot of questions, Frank, about extending the CFO's order on the 440 staff working remotely. Kyle updated a blog on this week. And yes, if that order needs to be extended, he feels comfortable that the CFO will extend that as part of any ongoing consideration. And then beyond that, just to let you know, we've had discussions about what to do with that going forward with the 440 being able to work remotely, because we know that may now become part of the new norm, and those folks prefer to work remotely. But unfortunately, based on current licensing restrictions, they won't be able to do that. So we'll have to figure that out. But currently, if there's a need, we do feel comfortable that order will be extended beyond the end of April to allow those staff members to continue to work from home. So, and then we've already gotten a couple of these questions, so we'll answer it now. FAIA convention. We will make a decision on that the week of May the 5th. We're in discussions now just about every day about it. But that's kind of the day that Jeff and Kyle and others have told us as a target date. So just be on the lookout. And certainly once we make that decision, everybody will be notified, and we'll see where we go from there. But that's the latest and the greatest from on some of the stuff that we're receiving here at FAIA. So let's bring in our special co-host, Frank Pennacchio, and just a little background, folks. Those that have been around the campfire a while know that a person that we had on staff for a long, long time, Bill Perkins, was kind of our person here in education that followed workers' comp, that helped us teach work comp classes, that went to a lot of the seminars and training from NCCI and others about workers' comp. And then when Bill decided to leave us to go to other pastures and move to outside of Chicago, we were referred to Frank by Brian Scarborough, former FAIA chair, that talked about Frank being a resource that we could partner with to help fill that gap. And certainly we've done that. It's been several years now that we've have Frank as part of FAIA education. We have Frank and his group on retainer to help us. Frank writes blogs, he teaches, and certainly as a resource. And I know over the years, Frank, you have helped many, many, many agents with workers' comp issues and to help them navigate those waters, so to speak. So want to welcome you, just give everybody the background, and certainly follow Frank's blogs and reach out when you can if you need help. Certainly he teaches. And then last year he was acquired, or they were acquired by Resource Pro, just to expand their wealth of resources beyond Oceanus Partners. So, but again, welcome, Frank. I hope you're doing well down in St. Pete, and we'll kick this thing off and go right into what I think is going to become, I know people always work from home, Frank. I mean, that's not an uncommon way of doing business, but I think we have more people now than ever, and I think we'll continue to have more people now than ever with that additional exposure of actually working remotely and some of the workers' compensation risks that are associated with that. So just kind of give us a brief overview of your thoughts on that subject.
Sure, Dave, and thank you very much, and thank you to the participants today for joining us. Yes, as Dave mentioned, and completely agree, we've had remote workers for a long time, but it's not likely that we've had as many as we have now. And to Dave's point also, some folks may look at that and go, you know what, if I don't have to bring people back, if this is working, if it's effective, then I'm not going to bring them back, especially unless and until there's a vaccine or better therapeutics around this virus. So a lot of folks are going to be going through that sort of decision-making process. But having a lot more workers at home does create some additional workers' compensation risks. And the next slide, please, Dave. Okay. And we have to give these some consideration. We have to keep in mind that there's not a lot of guidelines, not a lot of court cases with respect to injuries arising out of home work. We just don't know for certain. Yes, workers' compensation will pay for injuries arising out of the course and scope of employment, whether it be at home or not. But we'll go to the next slide to try to help employers recognize that they have and agents and brokers should help employers make certain folks that everybody has a work from home agreement, because what this will do is this will make it real clear to the employees that, look, your work hours are from X to Y. Let's say it's 8 to 5. We would prefer, if it's at all possible, that you have a separate area in your home. Some folks can't do that, that your duties are still the same, that the employee handbook is still active, and that you're not a 24/7 employee. You're not on call. You know, we don't expect you to be responding if an email comes in the evening and happens to come across your radar screen. We don't expect you to answer it. Let's keep normal hours. And just the purpose behind all of that is just to help people realize that, yes, when you're at work, you're at work. We want you to be safe, but at the same token, we really want to be aware that we're not going to extend accident coverage 24/7. So we'll move on to the next slide, Dave.
Yeah, before we get into that, Frank, you know,
sure.
I when I got into this business, I actually was a claim rep and worked out of my house for 10 years. Okay, and
wow.
And I can tell you, some days you went into your office, and the next minute you looked up, it was 8 o'clock at night. And so you do lose sight sometimes because you are focused. And again, like, you know, I worked with the Aetna. They certainly weren't expecting me to do that. But if something did happen, you know, I was working. I was working on claims. I was responding to emails, and so on and so forth. So I can see having a set of guidelines and an agreement. So you lay the groundwork on both sides, what's expected and, you know, what's needed out of you from working remotely is certainly a good tool to have. And I'm glad you're sharing. Can we get a copy? Yeah, we're going to share a copy with you. Frank, any other resources we're getting that question, any other resources you can provide that would help agents get this agreement or any other background other than what we are showing on the screen?
You know, I can. This agreement is free for your download out at the ThinkHR website. They've put up a COVID-19 series of tools that are strictly at no cost to you. Certainly, they have their subscription services, but I downloaded this one from. I've talked to those folks, and I've downloaded it from there, and you'll likely find others. Other agreements, other tools. They are and Zywave has it too. I don't know how much Zywave's offered up for free right now, but my current go-to folks are the folks at thinkhr.com, and I think you'll find numerous complementary tools available to use for this. And to help, and just think, if a client doesn't have this right now, or even a prospective client, which, by the way, Dave, I don't know if you've heard this from FAIA members, but we're hearing from agents and brokers around the country that as they reach out to prospects, they're being told that the prospects have not heard from their incumbent agents. I find that stunning.
Yeah, I talked to several agents this week, and you're exactly right. That's what they're hearing as they try to develop some new business, as just using that conversation as a resource And many of them came back and said, yeah, it's funny. You're the first one that's kind of told us about this. We hadn't heard from our current agent. So hopefully it's not any FAI members, but you definitely want to make sure that you're having those. Now's the time to communicate and utilize, those resources that you have at your fingertips to help your current clients and prospective clients.
Yes, there's risks such as the one we've just mentioned, and as we move through the next couple of slides, you'll hear about more that we didn't talk a great deal about, if at all, 90 days ago, 120 days ago.
Right.
So they're emerging. The tragedy itself, and the loss of income, and I know that lots of folks, we're not going to talk about virus exclusions today, but there's a lot of buzz around that. But they're very unique and different risks that are emerging out of this, and there's a lot of folks that just simply don't have the resources or and as Dave said, hopefully not FAIA members, but some incumbent agents, I'm speculating, are not reaching out because they're fearful. They don't know how to answer the questions. They may not have the resources to do so.
Yep.
But it's just shocking to me that at a time like this, the most amazing and just unprecedented time in my 32-year career, that people wouldn't really get close to their clients and offer any kind of assistance they can offer them. But that's what we're hearing from the field anecdotally at best.
Hey, Frank, one question came in. Name
yes,
that website again.
Sure.
Yes,
happy to. I'm sorry. It's a Think HR, like in human resources, but Think, THINKHR.com.
Okay.
Think HR, and they have a resource center like a lot. This is an actual work comp case that's working its way through the system right now. It's not in Florida, but it will be a heads up that a home worker actually tripped over their dog and filed a work comp claim. Currently, the carrier has denied it, saying it's not in the course and scope of employment. But these are the types of issues that are going to emerge. There's another example I didn't put in the presentation today, but a woman was actually home invaded and assaulted in her home as a work-at-home employee, and that one is working its way through the system as well. So there's a lot of questions about what's going to happen here. I did post a blog the other day, just as a heads up too, and this is really primarily more for the agents that are along the Panhandle, probably from Jacksonville to Pensacola and a little ways south. But if you have Florida businesses that have employees that live in Georgia or live in Mississippi or Louisiana, Alabama, excuse me, I hopped right over that. Happy to see the Dolphins do so well last night. But nonetheless, when they could have employees working at home in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And folks, you need to get those states in 3A of the work comp policy if that is the case. 3A of the work comp policy must have those states listed because of the clause in the policy that says if on the effective date of this policy you have work in a state not listed in 3A, coverage will not be afforded. Not will pay Florida benefits, and if there's a gap, employer is responsible for the difference, which is probably what I believe to be true for the first decade of my career, maybe longer. Better be lucky than good sometimes. But the policy clearly states coverage will not be afforded if those states are not listed in 3A. So that's another risk that we probably didn't really have to think about up until very recently.
Right. So as we transition slides, Frank, and you mentioned it earlier about this, how to avoid this 24-hour accident coverage, because everybody kind of somewhat looks at workers' comp that way.
They do, and with people not in the workplace, so many of them not being supervised, not being eyes on. There may be a feeling that if I get injured anytime, any place, anywhere, especially now, that I can file it. And there should be an extraordinarily low incidence of injuries arising out of remote at-home workers. If anybody sees a tick up in that activity, then we really should have a rather comprehensive discussion and investigation with the injured employee, because this is really should be, not many accidents should be reported through the course of this quarantine and this shelter at home work order.
Right, right. So, here's something that certainly came up here at FAI, and I'm sure in a lot of offices. When you take your workstations home and you try to set up a home office if you didn't have one previously, or you're setting up at your dining room table, whatever that is, to have a workspace that you're comfortable and safe in, Frank. And I think this slide kind of lends itself to that.
Right. We're just encouraging that, and agents and brokers can help with this, is to help the business owners communicate to their employees what the right setups are ergonomically, and provide them with a handout such as this. Again, everybody's home situation is a little bit different. Preferably somebody has a spare bedroom where they can set things up and be comfortable and not have strains and sprains as a result, or even just unnecessary fatigue. We're not asserting that it's the employer's responsibility to provide $1,000 office chair that's ergonomically correct, or has that amazing lumbar support and all those sorts of things. I think it's advisable to provide guidance on, yes, how high up your desk should be, how high up your monitor should be, what's good working position, and those types of things, and just offer that level of support, not necessarily purchasing. It's up to the employer as to whether or not they feel a need to purchase a whole bunch of nice office chairs and desks and the like. But we're going to stay out of that discussion.
On the same token, Frank, this is something that you could utilize the same type of setup for a workstation in the office itself. So it
absolutely
both ways,
Great point, Dave.
Yep.
Excellent point. Yes,
so
sir.
The next one talks about OSHA, and certainly, construction's still going on, Frank. We're hearing from a lot of agents that projects are continuing. Some have slowed some, but still construction's going on. New construction is somewhat been slowed, but the ongoing projects, and certainly OSHA plays a large part in that side of the business.
And none of that is going to change. That's going to continue on. But we've been getting some questions about, with all these work-at-home folks, whether or not OSHA could show up at somebody's home. And OSHA, or if there's a complaint, will they investigate? OSHA wants nothing to do with personal residences, folks. They will not go to somebody's home. They will not conduct inspections. And as we go to the next slide, Dave, they also will not hold employers liable. They do not expect employers to inspect people's homes, offices. I mean, I think this is just so sensitive that OSHA is saying, look, we're going to stay out. We're going to not encourage employers to stay out, but we're certainly going to say you're not responsible to go check things out. We start, crossing over the threshold of somebody's personal residence to look around. That's a very, very touchy issue. So OSHA is very clear about this. They're going to keep doing their thing, as Dave said, on the construction sites and transportation and other areas that are operating. But and to the next slide, Dave. Yeah. They're going to stay completely out. And if they get a complaint, they're going to advise folks that let's say an employee says, "Look, I'm working from home. I've got books stacked up to put my laptop on, so it's high enough. I'm straining and stressing, and I'm fatigued, and my employer's not providing me a safe place to work here at home because I don't have the right desk and the right chair." I was just going to say that's not our role, and it's not your employer's responsibility to come in and check things out. So just that's a relief for a lot of folks, and I think it's just wise that once we start crossing into people's homes, we got enough issues we're going to need to litigate over the next decade arising out of this, that it's just wise that we're going to leave this one off the radar.
Yeah, Frank, and certainly we encourage questions, folks, right now. If you have something specific for Frank, certainly the work at home is part of this presentation, but if there's some other things that you've been weighing on your mind from a workers' comp standpoint, throw them at us, and we'll try to get Frank to respond. He's very introverted, so it's going to be tough to get a response out of him. But
Dave, while those are coming in, if you don't mind, I can take a moment or two to talk about the latest updates with NCCI with respect to premium.
Yep, let's talk about it.
Because that's probably even more so the compensability of claims and impact on mods that I've been getting questions around from FAIA members and others as well. Here's where it's going to get dicey, okay? If someone is getting the federal money, the PPP money, and it's flowing through the employer and going to the employee, and they are absolutely doing no work, it doesn't count against premium at all. No work. Now that's going to be for folks like, say, my brother, who's an ophthalmologist, Dave. He had to close down his office.
Right.
He didn't feel it was safe. His employees are getting paid some of the PPP money. Plans to bring them all back, hopefully, soon. It's flowing through his payroll. They're not working. They can't examine people in their homes, so that's no work, and there's no premium at all. Where things are going to get dicey, where things are going to get a little testy, is when someone who was, let's say, they were working in a warehouse and they're not essential and they've been sent home, but the employer hired them to they're getting the money and has them doing clerical work. They said, look, we got some projects that we've been looking to do clerically, or we got clerical stuff to do, or any number of examples where somebody is actually doing something or doing something part-time. We're seeing the restaurant workers maybe getting some PPP money, but maybe they'll go in and do a takeout order shift or two a week. Now, what NCCI is saying about that right now is that unless the entire business changed to change the classification, you just can't take those people when they're working part-time. If their job role changed, you just can't change the classification for that payroll. We don't classify the job, we classify the business. And I think this is where we're going to have some anxiety at audit time. Not for the folks that did zero work, the folks that were getting the money and doing no work, and it was clear there was no work to be done. There's no question about that. That one's easy. The tougher one is going to be when somebody, perhaps even from a construction firm, they move somebody inside because maybe they don't have work, and they move somebody from being an executive supervisor to a clerical person. They didn't change the business, so that's going to be dicey. It's going to be testy. It's going to be something that we would strongly encourage, and Dave, this could be a topic for another day, that prior to audits this year, and possibly for a year or two, we really need to educate our clients on how to prepare and how to provide the accurate information to the auditor, not just say, here's my payroll ledger, I'm over here if you need any help. So there's something that is very, very clear: no work, getting payroll, no charge. Change of positions, that one could be testy.
So the advice, Frank, is certainly from a accounting and human resources avenue is to keep up with all that information. Like you say, if you're going to prepare for an audit, you got to be able to separate what you've done, correct?
That is correct. And now more than ever, with these extraordinary circumstances, we need to be coaching up our clients to do what you just said, Dave, and to keep good records and to prepare, and prior to audit, to have a package prepared that outlines all of this to the auditor. I'm not, because this is what makes this also so unusual is the money is flowing through the payroll ledger of the business.
Right.
It's not going, like unemployment insurance that goes directly to the employee. It's passing through the payroll ledger. So we use the payroll ledger as an audit trail for premium audits, and the money's going to show up there. So if we're going to have to be really, really diligent about making certain the auditor knows, okay, this was the PPP money. As you're well aware, that money flowed from this date to this date. So let's take, and none of these people worked at all. Let's take that out. And if some people worked a little bit, that's going to be a little bit dicey because class codes, it's not necessarily everybody goes to clerical if they do clerical work during this time. That's not the rule.
Right.
So it's, I think agents and brokers have a really, really good opportunity here to step up and help clients work their way through this. It's totally unprecedented. We've never seen what is really unemployment insurance money flow through the payroll ledgers of our clients' businesses, which is the audit trail for premium audits.
You know, Frank, great point. But is that something, Frank, that it would lend itself to another episode of Friday Morning Live, or do you and your group have a resource that agents can take to kind of walk them through that process to better understand and get educated to be able to now get in front of this and use that as a resource for their own clients?
You know, I think my recommendation would be we do it through Friday Morning Live, Dave.
Okay.
We've got time. This isn't going to hit, until audits hit. So, but it's so unique. We haven't developed anything yet, and part of the reason is we've been waiting for these. The first, you may recall, Dave, the first frequently asked question that NCCI put out was atrocious.
Yeah.
Now, they have rallied. Let me quickly say they have rallied, and they are, I think, doing a great job in trying to figure this stuff out. But the first one that came out was, here's our rules, go pound sand. And it didn't go over very well, but they've been responsive, and I've got to give them credit, a hat tip to NCCI. I think they're working very, very hard at this. So we haven't created anything yet. It's just been so rapidly changing, and it'd be our pleasure to do so for FAIAs for this type of session. So just let me know.
Right. Well,
it's not urgent because the audits aren't going to hit right away. But actually, the advice let me walk that back a little bit, Dave. The advice really needs to go to the employers relatively quickly with respect to how to keep that records.
Yeah. I agree with that, Frank. And so just kind of laying the groundwork, laying the foundation now may be a little bit more beneficial going forward, and then preparing for the audit, at a later date. It's
we can do that. We can go through the rules and talk about the process, and I'll follow your lead whenever you're ready, Dave. We'll make it happen from our end.
And again, Frank, see if you can respond to this. If an employee feels their home office environment is not conducive, can they just require them to come back and work in the office that is where it is more conducive? I mean, is there something to be said on that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of questions like this pop up at this point in time. Next Friday is the 1st of May.
Right.
So we're going to have to minimally probably tough it out another week. Assuming the shelter at work order is lifted for non-essential businesses. And what I think is going to happen, it's likely going to be lifted with those, restrictions of social distancing and so on and so forth. So I don't think you should have them come back unless or order them back or request that they come back until the shelter, if they're a non-essential business, quote unquote, let's not have them back. Let's not. Now, once that gets lifted, that's where a lot of questions are going to pop up. As Dave mentioned at the outset, some people may feel like, wow, this is working pretty good. Let's leave these people to continue to work from home, maybe bring them in once a week, to keep some camaraderie and socializing going on. But what if somebody says, I don't want to come back. I don't feel it's safe. And the federal guidelines say that we needed to have 14 days of declining, what do they call it?
Yeah,
reported cases.
right.
And we're going to be in a whole bunch of issues around that. And but right now, I'd say everybody just stay put. Don't do anything until the governor makes a decision, and then we're going to have to work our way through. We're going to have to certainly keep employees further apart. We're recommending, and some of these guidelines are out on the Think HR site. If you don't have to meet with somebody face to face, don't meet with them face to face. Do Zoom meetings even even in the same building. Do a Zoom meeting. Don't go to their office. And the other issue is going to be around: is there going to be enough disinfectant and masks? And we know there's not going to be enough testing just yet. But there's a lot of issues that we're going to need to help clients matriculate through this. Of which, folks, we've never been asked questions like this before. So don't be fearful. You belong to an association. The Florida Association of Insurance Agents, and I tell you what, you're getting your dadgum dues money's worth done these days. These folks have stepped up. They've always been there to step up, but they have. This is so unprecedented. So, you're out on the front lines. You're answering the tough questions. You're going to be asked questions you don't know the answers to, and let's make sure you have the resources and support. And don't be fearful that you don't know. How would you? We need to figure this stuff out. And Dave, that may be a way longer answer than you wanted. I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. Thanks for those comments about us, Frank. But I wanted to further your point about NCCI, and certainly you have relationships with them. We have built relationships over the years, and they have been extremely responsive. They've been extremely open to comments from you on behalf of you and your clients, and certainly on behalf of FAIA. We've had many conversations with those folks over there, including, us getting an email from their folks at 7 o'clock this morning, wanting to advise us on certain things that were coming out. So I applaud you for the help that you've lent to this, but certainly NCCI, like you say, stepping up and listening and trying to be guided, because it's uncharted territory. There's no doubt about it. And it's going to continue that way for the foreseeable future. And then the last thing I'll say on that, use the blogs, use the community, post questions, send emails, because we'll all learn from those things as we get those answers and be able to arm you with additional resources to help not only your agency, but certainly the customers that you need to support as well, and be a resource for them going forward, because they're going to have a lot of the same questions. They're going to be in the unknown category too. What do I do with this? How do I handle this? What this situation lends? Now all of a sudden John or Sally doesn't want to come back to the office. How do I navigate that? I understand from a workers' comp perspective, but a few weeks ago we had an HR guy on, and certainly can help there. HR, like you say, Think HR. There's another couple HR things that agents are using as a resource as well. So they're out there, and I think you're going to have to get more familiar with some of that. We always talk around here, stick to insurance, Frank. Stick to insurance, because we want to protect your E&O. I think in this case, you're probably going to have to expand your wings a little bit on some of this stuff. At least to help them, your clients, understand some of these issues and point them in the right direction. You're not going to be the expert, but certainly give them the resources that they can certainly utilize going forward. So,
well, and Dave, this is where, and I know that FAIA over the years have talked about, broadening the coverage in the areas of employment practices liability, which typically comes with, a hotline.
Yep.
No better reason to have that. I shouldn't say no better reason. That's one of the big advantages, because there are questions being asked now that have never been asked before, because the circumstances are such. I got asked a question yesterday. What if an employee comes back to work once the order is lifted, just long enough to say, I feel I qualify for my 80 hours of paid family medical leave under the new law? Which is pretty easy to qualify for when you look for those, when you look at the bullet points on what qualifies for that extended
Right.
family medical leave, and 80 hours of paid family medical leave. So who would ever have thought of that question? Well, there was no, until the law was passed, no one would ever ask that question.
Exactly. Yep. So, yeah, like you say, Frank, there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to come about as we transition back to reopening offices, reopening businesses, as we, navigate how that workflow will be handled, how employees will kind of be integrated back, into the workplace. So, yeah, a lot of questions. So certainly pose them to us. We'll get the answers the best we can. We have, as Frank said, a lot of resources at our fingertips here, and be able to help you and help your client at the same time. So,
and Dave, I can make one last closing comment around all these challenges that agents are facing right now. Folks, people don't tend to sue people they like. Be accessible, be available, be supportive, be helpful. We don't know what's going to get litigated arising out of this. There's going to be tons of it. We just don't know where it's going to come from. Employers need to be nice to their employees as they welcome them back into the workplace. They need to be empathetic. You may need to coach them up on that. And be nice to all of your employers, and be empathetic and be supportive. And that's going to reduce problems. And this is not a prevention class today, but I just want to encourage people. This is hard stuff. You're on the front lines of some very hard stuff, but be as empathetic and supportive as possible, and that's going to make a lot of problems go away.
Yeah, great comments. And we're going to learn from a management standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, some of those new tools that we'll have to, like you say, Frank, have to develop going forward, because the workplace, the new norm, whatever that becomes, will have to be adjusted accordingly. So, but Frank, thanks so much for being on. And folks, if you have questions, certainly pose them. Go to Frank's blog, post questions, send us a note. If you need help from a workers' comp perspective, we'll be glad to help and get you to the right people, including Frank. So again, Frank, thank you so much. You've been a good partner of FAI's for the last several years. We want to continue down this path, utilize your services, your resources, going forward, because again, while you learn and we learn, and certainly our members will learn as well as we go through this COVID-19, issues going forward, this pandemic. So,
well, I want to thank you for the opportunity, and your colleagues, Dave. It's a privilege and a real pleasure to work with you, and thank the participants for joining us. And yes, reach out if we can help. Always welcome that opportunity.
Yeah, and you see on the screen, Selling in the New Normal with Susan, Frank's business partner, and Beyond Next Week. And so this is something that we talked about. The date's a little off. It's actually May the 1st instead of today. So apologize for that, but it's May the 1st, next Friday. But Susan will be talking about some of the issues we're already getting questions about, of how we sell in this current environment, but when we all try to reintegrate, how do we continue down that path? And I think Susan will lead us in a great discussion about that, of giving us some tips, giving us some things to think about of how we move forward from a sales perspective. So look for that. And then the following week, on May the 8th, Marsh Berry's going to be on, talking about all the activity, the M&A activity, the impact of the pandemic on brokers and agents, what that business model looks like, how they see it, and how they see it going into the future. So there's going to be impact. It's not business as usual, as they say on this slide, but certainly encourage the next couple weeks. And then we have more shows coming on online. Just haven't booked them solidly yet, but we'll probably have Friday Morning Live through the end of May. And then see where we go from there. Hopefully we'll be back to somewhat normal, and then maybe take the summer off and kick it back up in the fall. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. We appreciate Frank. And again, if you have issues, questions, concerns, get on the community and post them. Be safe out there. If you need anything from FAI, we're here to help support you. Thanks for your membership, and be safe and have a great weekend.